Ladies and gentlemen, we have been into the darkest dungeon. It happened, finally. Welcome back to our journey through the darkest dungeon, where lives have been lost, strain has happened, and it was ultimately, we reached the point where it was time to head in. Before we went into the darkest dungeon along this road, I was like, I've got a really good team now. I've got my level 6s, I've got antiquarians that are making me money. I felt really comfortable, and we got some bosses to kill, and I was kind of starting to really remember what the bosses did. And this proved to be super useful, because I was like, I had my main team, and I was like, we're going to the darkest dungeon, but they need some stress relief. I want them to be in good condition when they go in. So we had to wait a week for that. So I was looking around, I was like, gotta kill the hag. I remember the hag. The hag is the big giant piglet that has a little piglet. I have never attacked that little piglet because it's bait. It's clearly bait. Whatever that little guy is, it's got this Mad Max vibe. If you've ever seen Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome with Master Blaster, it's got that entire vibe of the little one is the danger, not the big one. And I remember that what it did, it marked people. So I was like, okay, I'll look around. And I was like, oh, my Arbalist, my hunters can clear mark. So that's a good idea. We'll take an Arbalist, and then we'll take these other characters, and we'll go for it. When you learn the mechanics of a fight, and it works out wonderfully, it's so good. Honestly, that feeling of like, yeah, I know what to prepare for. I've got my team in the right condition, because the fact that the boss marked me and I just cleared it every time meant that it just did no damage. I was like, boom, and that's the final version of that boss dead. And then we went on to do the hag. The hag's a really interesting one. I faced the hag once before, and I remember that the hag had a cooking pot. And it kept casting something called Into the Pot, which I assume crowd controls one of my characters. But I dodged it every time and just killed the boss. And so it was like nonsensical. It was just such a dumb mechanic. So I was like, I feel it riding a high. Let's go do this as well. And went in, and I stacked like my front character with just my leper with just dodge gear. It kind of worked until if I found out, oh, it doesn't just target the front character, it can target anything. And then I was so comfortable and so like overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. As it then like grabbed my others, I started putting them into the pot, and then it turned out I was like, oh, not only is my leper completely useless, entirely useless, right? And it snowballed so quickly, because when my character went to the pot beforehand is immune to all damage and has a lot of HP anyway, and it's immune to everything. And the boss is in the back rows, which a leper can't hit. So my leper was entirely useless. And when someone got put in the pot, it reshuffled my party, and I had a party which kind of only really worked if people were in the right positions. Remember that for later, my friends. It made the fight got infinitely harder when people got put in the pot. Unless I could just one-hit them out, it got really hard. I'm happy to say we did clutch this out, because I had enough damage to overcome it, just about. I just killed the boss with lunges. The boss just like melted when lunges went down. So I was like, thank God. But that fight escalated really badly. But then it was time. It's time for the darkest dungeon. Now, a smarter me would have done an antiquarian run and made a lot more money for just in case this went wrong, because I was 99% sure we were going to lose people on this mission, because I didn't know what was in there, right? I don't know whether we're going to have another situation where, oh, this fight is just entirely non-physical, or bleed immune, or blight immune, or it does massive amounts of some type of thing that you're not prepared for and you haven't got your trinkets on for. It's a scouting mission. So those brave souls that were stepping in, Caspi, Decadence, Ragnar, and co. Smart. They were going in there to sacrifice their lives for the gain of our knowledge. But it was time. So I equipped them with everything. I was like, I'm not going to do the antiquarian run. People are waiting for this darkest dungeon run. We're going. It's happening. I was down to like 4,000 gold at this point. I made sure they had maximum upgrades, maximum armor. Each character here is probably an investment of about 35,000 gold each, right? Like, they're a huge investment. And I also was debating, like, do I give them good trinkets? Because if they die, I don't get those trinkets back. And I lose them, and then my best trinkets. But at the same time, sending them in, like, under-equipped isn't going to give me a fair valuation of what to do in this dungeon. So I was like, right, we kind of... And I do know now that I can fight the Shrieker and get my trinkets back. So I was like, okay... We kind of just have to go for it, don't we? We kind of have to go for it. So I equipped them fully. I gave them everything. I got every resource from the vendor. I got I got herbs, I got bandages, I got laudanum, I got everything. Because I was like, I don't know what's in here. It could be like the Shrieker, where we just go in, because all the mission said is kill a shambling horror. So I was like, maybe you go in and you just fight the boss. Or maybe we go in and it's like the Hamlet, where we have to explore and things like that. So I was more concerned about the trash. Now, one thing I didn't do, because I'm a moron, was double check everyone's camping skills. Because you can camp. So I got my scouting map out and equipped that and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't set out perfect camping skills. In we went. It's really ominous. As an environment, you know you're in the end game. Like, this is the end game of what we're supposed to be doing. And it opened up. And the immediate thing I realized, probably by the second room, is scouting map is useless here, and I shouldn't have brought it because it doesn't work. And it's just a long corridor. This game is cruel. Because you know you're going to get screwed. You know that. You absolutely know you're going to get screwed. And it just presents you with one long corridor. So I was like, okay, this feels like a gauntlet to get to the boss at the end. So I walk down the corridor. Nothing happens. And I'm like tentatively creeping down this corridor and nothing happens. I'm like, this is awful. This is absolutely awful. So maybe it's one long, ominous, tension-building corridor to reach the boss. Then some trash spawned. A couple of things I hadn't seen before, but a couple of things I had seen before, but upgraded to a newer version, like golden versions of them. But had no health. Like, I murdered them. And I was like, huh. Huh. Huh, huh, huh. Okay. Huh. Keep going. Go into the room. Enemies spawn, not a boss. So I was like, okay, my gut feeling now is we kill these ads and then more ads will come and it'll be like that kind of gauntlet style, right? So I kill those ads. Not too big of a deal. A couple of nasty ones in there that cause some stress, but nothing mega. But then it's like Hamlet. When you open the, when you finish the room and then it gives you can go north, you can go south, you can go left, you can go right. Where do you want to go? I'm like, okay. I see what this is. We're going to have to keep trucking through. And the problem with this, why is this a problem, right? Why is this a problem with instead of having the normal layout? Is that the normal layout, when you do a boss run, you know where the boss is going to be. So the boss is always the furthest away from the starting tile. Always. And if there's two places that are equally as far away, it can be either. But it is always at the furthest away. But without the map layout, you don't know when you're going to encounter the boss. So you've got to use your knowledge here of like, well, how long is a medium dungeon normally? When would you have camped here? So, because you want to use your camp. You want to get your buffs up and de-stress and all those kinds of things. So off we go. And I go through room after room, corridor after corridor, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And at this point, the tension, and the game does this really well, the tension is really starting to become palpable of when do we decide to camp. Camp at the right time, and we're guessing where to go. Great. Camp at the wrong time and you get buffs up, but you use them in the trash before you get to the boss, and therefore you lose all your buffs by the time you get there, because you're usually 4 battles long, right? So it's like, it's got that Dark Souls vibe. Do you push to potentially getting the next bonfire, or do you go back? What do you do? And so I was like, okay, keep going, an extra one. Eventually I got to a point where I was pretty deep in the dungeon. So I've done like six rooms or something. So I'm like, the boss has to be nearby. Has to be. Like, just for the fact that it's a medium-sized dungeon and we're at room 6, that generally means the boss is within 1 or 2 rooms at this point. So I'm getting the vibe of what this is. It's a medium dungeon that just has no map. Okay. So I camp. Could not stop surprise attacks, which is a really stupid thing that I did not prepare for. And a surprise attack is what killed our Raven yesterday, because surprise attacks not only surprise you, but they reshuffle your party, and usually they're very nasty, and you can go from camping. And often what happens if you get surprise attacked is you will go into a camping state actually pretty good. Usually my team is like relatively full health and low stress, and we camp to get rid of all stress, be full health, and come out with damage buffs. But if you get surprise attacked, you're often coming out of the camping experience worse than when you went in, which is just, it's pointless, right? You might as well have not camped at that point. So I didn't get surprise attacked. The dice rolled my favor. I was getting extremely stressed out. And now I want to be absolutely clear. we've obviously played it, modified the game visually, right? Lots of visual changes have been made to the game, to the characters, to the town NPCs, and things like that. Nothing gameplay-wise. The dice rolled in my favor here. When your stress bar, because your stress bar can fill twice, right? You get the hollow squares, and then you get a bad affliction. So it'll be something like abusive or masochistic. And what will happen then is your characters will freak out. Now, we did have a virtue bonus chance from the town crier. In this run, we got 3 virtue stress levels. Now, when you get a virtue stress, it's a low chance of when your stress reaches max is that you probably get something negative, but there is a chance you will get something which is virtuous, which gives you a huge stress reduction and powerful buffs onto the rest of your party. You can get things like vigorous and things like that. 3 of my characters got positive virtuous traits, which is unheard of. Like, the chances of that happening, I mean, we did have a bonus virtue chance for sure, so the odds were better than normal, but still, it's very lucky. How could I have lost? How could I have lost, my friends? Well, I made my choice, my camping choice, correctly, and went into the boss. Now, I will say this. The boss is not that hard. Now I know what it does, right? As all things when it comes to hard boss progression in any game, is that once you know what it does, if I was to face this boss again, I will face this boss again, is we will not fail. I know what the boss does now. I am fully aware of it. But I definitely did not win this time. Which isn't surprising. It was what I thought going in. I was surprised I even made it to the boss. I was expecting far nastier trash than what was in there. But what did the boss do that made this? I will say, we had the boss down to 32 health. That is 1 hit away from death. We were 1 hit away from finishing this boss. That's how close it was. We did pretty well without knowing what this boss did. What does it do? You've got this big hunking boss, causes a lot of stress, does some nasty things, and it spawns with a priest. Now, the Cthulhu priests are pretty interesting. They do massive damage and massive stress, but they have relatively low resistances to things like stun. So stun would have been massive, because I could have just CC'd it and killed the boss, right? Could have done that. But I wanted to kill the ad, although I suspected it would just respawn it, but that's knowledge I want to gain. So I did throw damage into the priest. I did kill it, which then means it spawns this wall in front of it, which then guards the boss. So clearly, you don't want to be killing this priest. You want to be ignoring this priest or just soaking its damage and dealing with the boss as much as possible. Just pile DPS into the boss, and you would have victory there, because you're not going to deal with things like guard, where you can't even hit the boss. But that's what I did. It spawned the wall, so I then had to kill the wall, which then led to respawning a priest. So we were back to square one, and by this point, the real nightmare of this fight became apparent. 2 things. 1, a ridiculously devastating bleed effect, which I had 1 person who could cure bleed. I had used my bandages on the way to the boss, because the dungeon trash has a lot of nasty bleeds as well. So it definitely is set up to, like, use your bleeds. So I was like, God damn it, man. I'll use your bleed cures, because, like, it's brutal. It's like 6 or 7 damage a round with 1 stack. So 2 of them is, you know, it's talking 12 to 14 damage a round from bleed for 4 rounds. That's huge damage. That's like half your party's health. So I cured it with bandages earlier. And so I'm in this situation. Now, the fact is, the second thing, not only the bleed, which I was dealing with, the second thing was the constant reshuffling of the party. Constantly. Like, every time you even got close to getting your party into, like, a semblance of good order, it would reshuffle them again. And the problem I ran into was that my party functioned very effectively with people being in a very kind of specific place. They could juggle once left or right, but the fact that I'm using a grave robber, which shuffles people 2 back, and then he shuffles back so it moves them forward, and then reshuffling them. What ended up happening is I had 4 rounds in a row where I could not attack anything, and I could not heal either. It got my healer, my Vestal, right to the front where 0 spells work. It did the same with my other 2 characters. It pushed them so far back they couldn't do anything. Like, my bounty hunter couldn't do anything. And I ended up going literally 4 rounds of inaction while getting pummeled. And this bit was where I did get aggravated and frustrated, because I was like, I literally just can't play. And I know I can solve it. Don't get me wrong. I know I can counter this. I can do things about it. But there was nothing I could do. I had people going to death's door. I couldn't heal them. I couldn't remove their bleeds. And I just had to watch as they were pummeled down. I was like, God damn it, man. And the interesting thing that happened is the boss had so little health. And our guys were virtuous. And they kept dodging death's door like they were holding on. Is that they kept being a chance. So I didn't, like, run away. I was like, there's a chance here. We can make it happen. But then 2 of them died. And I was left with my, my Hellion, Decadence, and I was left with Caspi, my Grave Robber. And at this point, Caspi had like a 200% damage buff on any of his attacks. But he needed to be in the second row. And my Hellion was on death's door. I was like, I need 1 round. If I get 1 round where Caspi can attack, I win. I win. It's as simple as that. I need 1 more death's door dodge. And that did not happen. Decadence fell, moving Caspi to the front of the line where he could do 0 attacks except his Shadow Step, which puts him into stealth. And then I got Softlock, essentially. The boss literally couldn't hit me, and I couldn't hit them. We were perpetually locked, deadlocked in each other, because they can't attack stealth. And Caspi can't attack them, even with his high damage buff. And this is how my first ever visit to the Darkest Dungeon run ended. Was both of us staring at each other. It's almost like in WoW, like the rogue pop vanished and the boss was looking around and like nothing we could do. And I was so close. I was 1 hit. I needed 1 hit. If I would have brought like Wicked Hammer, which can be used by a Grave Robber from the front row. If I had brought that spell, I would have won. If I had done, any endless amount of things I would have done slightly differently, such as bringing a cultist instead of a Vestal, who could have healed from any position, we would have been fine. If I would have brought somebody who could, it was like if I'd brought a Highwayman, we would have been fine. We would have been fine because everything else was good, but it was not good. Ladies and gentlemen, our first visit to the Darkest Dungeon resulted in 3 deaths and the loss of 6 trinkets of my top tier trinkets, which is brutal. So that comes out to what? 120,000 gold investment plus probably another 70,000 gold's worth of trinkets because they're the legendary ones. They sell for a lot of money. So about 200,000 gold loss, I would estimate, around that number for our first run to the Darkest Dungeon. But knowledge gained, in which case I'm pretty sure I can smash this place next time. And then a ray of light. Because the game giveth, or I should say, the game taketh, but then the game giveth back. It gave me the Shrieker as soon as I came out, which restores 8 of your trinkets. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, because the last time we fought the Shrieker, if you saw the episode, the Shrieker, I don't even know how it really works, because I didn't kill it last time, and it flew off, and I still got the reward. So I was like, I actually don't need to kill this, but I think I can. Because I want to know what happens if you kill it. And I can make a party of our level 5s, which is just like the most brutal DPS group. Like, I can mark the target, I can reduce its dodge, and I could just smash it into the floor. And that's what I did. I put this group together. I went into the Shrieker, because you just fight the boss straight away. And I had my, like, Grave Robbers. I marked it. I gave him bonus damage to mark targets. And he was, I think in the end, he crit it for like 86 damage or something stupid. I'm probably saying that too high, and it was like 68 or something. But I mean, butchered the crow into the floor. And like I killed it in 2 rounds, I think. I murdered it. And I got all my trinkets back. Hey! I got all my trinkets back. I got all my trinkets and a really nice one to go along with it. And I was like, not too bad, actually. Like, not too bad. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It ain't too bad. Like, you know, the game taketh away. It took all my top tier characters, but then it gave me my trinkets back. So, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. But we will finish. We will beat the Darkest Dungeon. We will beat it. I'm not sure how it works because it has level number next to it like the other zones do, of whether we kill the Shambling Horror and that's quote-unquote the last boss, or whether we get 3 versions of it and then some ultimate boss. I don't know. But we are going to take a little break from Darkest Dungeon for now. I know I tried to finish it before Mists of Pandaria Remix, but we didn't quite make it. But that's okay. That's okay. So I will be back. Don't worry. Don't worry. We will be back. But a little pause for now. Bye, guys.